Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh, okay.
How did that happen, Angry? How did you get the role of Iron Bar Bassi?
Well, I remember going to see. I remember going to see the first movie. One of my closest friends, Howard Freeman, who's a very high-profile crew boss for many, many, many years. And he rang me up and said, "Have you seen Mad Max?" And I said, "No, I've just vaguely heard about it." He said, "Go and see it." He said, "Change your life. Best fucking movie in the world." So I went and saw it, walked out, went back the next night, watched it again. Couldn't fucking quite get my head around it, like, you're fucking kidding. So let about a week or two go, went back and saw it again, and I thought, somehow I got the idea, and it wasn't publicly known then that he wanted to make a series. Well, he wanted to make a trilogy originally, and having the three different parts of his transformation, and then eventually end up old, etc. The old road weary road warrior, so to speak. But so I said to, I remember saying to the management, I said, if they ever make another Mad Max movie, I've fucking got to be in it, right? Because it was so, to me, it was Rose Tattoo in cinema, so to speak. I mean, it was all about Australia. It was all about our obsession with V8 engines and combustion fuel and muscle cars, and also the imagery, the masculinity of the hero, the femininity of the heroine. It had all those components like built into it, and it was so fucking Australian. And so anyway, in the meantime, I did a movie called Bullamakanka, and I worked on the movie with there was a not makeup, she was costumes, wardrobe. Anyway, so my management approached when they announced they were going to make Mad Max 2. Our management, or my management, Tat's management, approached them and said, Angry would love to be in the movie, and sent photos and footage of the band and all that kind of shit. And she tells me, the lady in question tells me the story where they're having a production meeting, and George said, someone held up a photo of me, and said, like, have a fucking look at this guy, right? We'll have a look at the band, like, have a look at, like an Angry, his management submitted that he wants to be in the movie. And George said, like, he's everything that we want to look at. But he said, he's got a very bad name, volatile personality and blah, blah, blah. And the wardrobe lady that I'd worked on this small budget movie called Bullamakanka, she said, well, I work with him, and he's if you can keep him sober, he's a sweetheart. But once he gets groggy to him, he turns into a bit of a lout. So George said, okay, get him in, we'll do a reading. So they sent us communicated with our management to that effect. But when there was some sort of time thing involved, and by the time they got around to doing auditions going to start filming, we were off touring.
Okay.
And the funny thing about it is, a guy I went to school with, a guy called Vernon Wells, who was I was in early bands with Vern. He was a year or two ahead of me at school, and he ended up playing Wes. He auditioned for the part, and he got the part of Wes, and and he moved to Hollywood to pursue. Ended up in being in a bunch of movies with Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
and other people like that. You know, doing the bad guy sort of thing. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. But by the time Mad Max came around, they went back through their folder or files and said, what are you doing? And we said, well, we're fine. You know, we're in between sort of bands.
You can do it.
So the time was available. So I went along and did a reading and yeah, hit it off with everybody right from the very, very beginning. And so, because the Ironbar Bassy part was only in the very, the first 10 minutes of the movie was the opening scene when he's coming into Bartertown with Frank, and I'm like captain of the guards, you know, Auntie's guards. And that was the other component too, was that, you know, like I was a rock and roll singer and Tina was going to be the main star apart from Mel. And so there was that nice mix up there too. But I fitted more as a look into that role.
But a memorable part, nevertheless, because I'm sure you get a lot of recognition from your non-rock fans. Oh, you know, Mad Max.
I'll tell you a funny story. It was in I was doing so it was in the 90s, early 90s. I was over in America filming some stuff for a show I did called Challenge. And we were at Disneyland. We were staying. We were on holiday, right? So I took myself, the mother of the children, my daughter, and Galen, the eldest boy. He was like 2 years old or something. So we were at Disneyland, and the second day we were staying at the Disneyland Hotel. There's like a little train that comes from Disneyland into the hotel, pulls up outside it's amazing. You just get on the train, fucking 5-6 minutes later you're in Disneyland. So anyway, it was our second or third day, and it was this person came over, and they knew that we were from Australia, and we'd been there shooting a TV show, blah blah blah. So one of the this was classic. One of the people from the staff came over and said, "Excuse me, we've had a special request. Would you do some photographs?" And I went, "Oh yeah, okay," because they were treating us royal. I mean, they gave us everything, so it was really good. But it was a busload. Well, it was 2 busloads of Japanese people that were on holiday. So I'm thinking like 3 or 4 people, maybe half a dozen people, where I'd get my photograph taken that they'd recognise me from. They said, "Oh, because people have recognised you from the movie." And I left the kids with the mum, and I said, "Look, I'll be back, and as soon as I get these photos taken." There was two busloads of these Japanese people, because Mad Max was huge in Japan.
Yeah.
That was the most bizarre recognition, if you like, of being Ironbar Bassy. Plus the fact that with the Mei Ling, which was the mask.
That was like inspired costuming, wasn't it, for you? You just looked right in that sort of world.
Yeah. Well, see that. Well, that's what I was sort of kind of alluding to, like. Yeah, so the first one, I mean, when you think about the appearance of all the people in it, I mean, I would have stood out, but I mean, there was never an option for me to be in the first one. The second one, yes, because they were all of a sudden they were all weirdo, like
punk. Almost
yes,
futuristic punk looking, the mohawks and
all that stuff, and that was all that was all the costume designer, who was the lady who got me the gig in the first place. Her surname was Morisot. But anyway, it inspired costuming because she invented this whole futuristic, the apocalyptic world, or the remnants of the apocalyptic world, blah, blah, blah. It all got very tribal, which every prediction is that it will, if that ever happens. And of course there was, you'd have your army, if you like, or the people that would protect and whatever. And the costuming was the first time that she'd sort of, or the only time, except there was a couple of, like she did all the thing with the padding and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, with Iron Bar, she was able to, it was almost like sort of samurai sort of, she wanted the bare shoulders, because originally there was shoulder things, which were, but yeah, George said, no, want all the ink, as much ink as can be revealed, right? So it meant that I couldn't have anything up here. Yeah, and the what they call the Go mask is a series of masks. They're called Go, G-O-H, and they're like a theatrical thing. A lot of the actors in plays wear them or hold them on sticks, and that's why she was kind of like his spiritual guide.
What was it like working with Mel, Tina, and for that matter, Frank Thring? That would have been an experience.
Well, Mel turned out to be, at first he was a bit standoffish. And then we were just got in a conversation one day, and he said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "At Coogee." And he went, "Coogee?" He said, "Oh, I live there too." He was down the south end, and bought a couple of, I think, terraces, and renovated the whole thing. And I was up the north end, but up the hill. I was up from the hill back, looking down on Coogee. And so he said, "Oh, mate, he said, he had a driver. He said, "Mate, I can come with us, after a shoot. I'll drop you home." And, so we got to be pretty good pals. I mean, I've got footage of him and lots and lots of photographs of him at some of my family and friends' barbecues at Coogee. And his best mate, who was a photographer, took some remarkable photos of my kids and myself and my then wife. And so we formed quite a close and warm relationship, as I did eventually with Tina. Once she found out that I was a singer in a band, someone must have showed her some footage, and she said, "Wow," she said, "They're pretty scary people." And I said, "Well, it's a blues band." And so she got into the music, and she was talking, actually didn't say we sounded like, she said, a lot of the, because we're talking about influences and stuff, and R&B, and I said to her, which a lot of the early fans knew, that we used to cover Nutbush, and which, interestingly enough, was an Ian Ryland's suggestion that we, but it's funny you should mention Frank, because as much as I really value the time that I spent with Tina, I mean, she was gracious enough that she would allow me to share her caravan with her. to eat and stuff like that. And so we got into some fairly deep and meaningful conversations because she was a devout Buddhist and was being tutored, if you like, or mentored or taught by, back in Los Angeles. She had like a guru, but not a guru because Buddhists don't have gurus. But yeah, she was being instructed into the ways of Buddha. She told me at one stage where she was going to buy a ranch, and her she wanted to start this rehabilitation center, but a center for spiritual study and development based on Buddhism. She was a devout Buddhist. Interesting enough to know that the man that resurrected her career and was her manager right till the very end, I think, was Sherbet's old manager, Roger.
Yeah.
And he resurrected her career.
Roger Davies.
Roger Davies, yeah.
Yeah.
Off the back of rescuing Janet Jackson, who was going to disappear because she was a child star, and was just struggling to make the transition. But but you mentioned Frank, probably one of the most interesting people in my whole experience.
He comes across as a character.
Oh, like no other. Like, he was an extraordinary man. George asked me at one stage, he said, I need an assistant or someone to look after Frank. And I said, what do you mean look after him? And he said, and I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, I'm in the movie. Like, you got some fucking minion to do this, you know what I mean? He goes, Frank likes you. I said, I don't get the vibe there. I said, he hardly ever talks to me. He said, yes, but he does talk to you. And he said, anyway, I just need someone to sort of look after him. Part of my job was to carry he had a bag. I think it was Pan Am, I'm not sure, but a small cask of wine fitted directly into this bag. And I used to follow him around when we were shooting, or even if he was just shooting and I wasn't. And I had this bag with the cask of wine in it, Stanley Leasingham, and a flute. And he would just look at me, and I had one of those little, and I'd fill his glass up and give it to him, like, yeah. He and I, again, we got into some really deep and meaningful. He was an extraordinary man. Some of the stories he told me about his early experiences in Hollywood were quite extraordinary.